So we included telemetry on the program for today because there was a really big call from producers to know about different systems, how they're running and what they're doing. So I'll come to some questions from you guys while you collect your thoughts. But to the producers, Scott and Josh and Michelle if needed, what's been the biggest gain since you've implemented telemetry on your place? Might go with you, Scott, first.
Obviously, just like I said, the peace of mind and knowing what's going on while you're even here. Like I had a text message come through a minute ago saying one of my tanks is starting to drop rapidly. It's like a set of header tanks, which are 4 tanks, so 20,000 gallons. When I get 5 minutes, I'll make a phone call and probably get someone to go up there and check a few troughs.
Cheers, Scott. Josh?
Yeah, the main thing's probably reducing that labour and reducing the kilometres you're putting on that vehicle. If you can keep those water runs down to a bit more of a minimum, you're saving time on your vehicles, and you also reduce that labour too, which is a bit hard these days to find extra labour. The other thing is with those header tanks, if you have got a problem, if one of those header tanks is not working, you've got 3 or 4 different pipelines that it's going out to that could be quite a number of stock that you've got to go out and check and make sure they're right. But if you can look at the camera in the morning, no, hang on, we got a problem here, there's no water going into that tank. Yeah, you can go straight out there and you might not be 3 or 4 days behind, you're right on the money.
Just add one quick thing for us for Mount Eba. It gave us the opportunity to expand those waters up the north because they're fresh water and we could put those cameras up there. For us, that was paramount. One, for the labour saving cost for it. I don't know that we would have been able to viably extend to such an extent and find the labour to be able to manage and make that quite so cost effective. And that was paramount to us being able to increase our pastoral rating as well. So quite a significant gain for us in being able to be able to manage that.
Cheers. Questions from the audience? Anyone got one? Yep. For you.
Question mainly for Josh, because FarmBot, we don't have the problem, but do you have much problem with cockies chewing all your insulation and poly and things like that? But what do you do to prevent it?
I don't think we actually have too many problems like that, but yeah.
It's probably something that maybe Scott or Shane might want to add. Shane or Scott, do you want to add to that? Any problems with cockies?
Never had chew any of my telemetry systems. They had them chewed solar pumps and stuff like that. I did put an owl, like plastic owl, bought from Cheapest Chips underneath one of my pumps one day, and that sort of deterred it happening again.
It is definitely an issue, but it's easy enough to overcome if you're aware of it and you just make sure everything's protected accordingly, but they can be a fair pain. Fiberglass antennas don't last very long, rubber antennas, so you've got to make sure if you've got antennas, they're steel, and make sure that if you've got wires, they're sleeved inside the steel poles or in conduit, otherwise they will give you grief.
I might add foxes to that list.
Yeah, foxes, they're pretty handy as well.
Just from experience on our place, hands up, we've had issues with foxes with our telemetry system. Andrew, did you want to add anything to that about interference with the equipment?
Look, I think with the FarmBot equipment, we try and make sure everything's encased as much as possible. Especially like the only really thing that protrudes from the casing of a water level sensor is the cable. But you drop that straight into the tank, and there's very minimal sort of exposure of wires. Definitely, we learnt that the hard way from our first sort of versions, and that's been something we've always designed into our product. So all of our add-ons as well, it's all designed so that there's minimal exposure for the lovely Australian ornithological creatures to get to it and have fun with it. So and reduce our customer service calls by a lot.
No worries. Any other questions, you guys? I've got one for the producers on the panel. Anything you would do differently in hindsight with your water telemetry?
Yeah, we probably don't really see the day-to-day problems that come with it as much, but yeah, probably just making sure you know which water points you access more and just go from there, I suppose.
Yeah. Scott?
Not really. I guess I use Shane's, the Alpha Group, and we can it's a very easy system to adapt, to build. If you put something somewhere and all of a sudden you might install a new tank, and it's like, I need something in a hurry. I can always go take a tank level sensor off one of the other ones and put that in that spot, and then order another one to replace where something might not be so as important.
I think as well. Look, a lot of our producers, they put on a couple of the systems and get used to it, and it's not uncommon for them to actually call us and say, look, I'm thinking about doing, expanding my water network here, and here, and we say send through a Google Map or Google Earth with some drop pins, and we actually just take it down to R&D and say, what do you think? And we work with, we really work with our producers because it is a relationship, and say, well, if you're going to expand your water network and, to get the best usage, we sort of work with them to try and help them grow and, have more access and more data.
Can I just make a comment, Joes?
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is challenging for people when they start on the journey is a lot of people kind of don't really know what's available, so they sort of trying to find something that they don't really know what it is yet. And in the early phase of telemetry, a lot of it was camera-based. We don't do cameras for a few different reasons, but that's sort of what's in people's mind as to what they think that they need. And then once they sort of get into it and they're doing tank levels and starting to utilise the data from it, they start understanding what they're doing and then, understand the value of flow rates and, rain gauges and all the add-ons. So just kind of making sure that the system that you're looking at is scalable. So as you grow and understand the system and want to do more with it, your system can actually grow with you.
Cheers. Now, I'm going to ask the elephant in the room, cost. So cost, 1 for the equipment and 2 for any subscription costs, etc. And I'll start with you, Shane, because you've got the microphone.
It's a little bit of a tricky answer because we can kind of cut the cloth to suit with our gear. It doesn't matter what you want to do, we can sort of add it on. But as a base level tank, it's just straight tank level sensors, 1650. If you want a tank system which has got flow meters going into the tank, flow meters going out, and tank level, that's about $2,500. If you want a system to go into your mains water, that's about $1,595. It goes on and on. But
Subscription costs?
the subscription on your first unit's $275 a year, and the subscription on your subsequent ones is $220. The reason for the difference is that if you've got 10 systems, you still only get 1 text message each morning, so that $50 a year is paying for your daily text message.
Andrew?
Yeah, so I guess, obviously there's the FarmBot water level monitor which sits on top of the tank, and that can have up to 5 devices wired into the back of it. And also it can have up to 10 devices talking to it wirelessly. So in terms of costs, it's a varying, base depend on what you want to add on and what's suitable for yourself. But in general, that FarmBot monitor, that housing, it's $1,290 plus GST. Now, the big thing for us as well is the connectivity. So you've either got the cellular network, and we say with that, if you've got at least 1 bar or more of cell service on the tank, you go with a cellular network. If it's dropping in and out, then we have the satellite connectivity, and we use a high orbit satellite systems, to ensure that you're getting those alerts and all that data when you need it. So when a leak happens, you're going to know now, not when if there's some cloudy weather or rain, the satellite picks it up. The next time it goes around if it misses that data upload. So it's $342 for the cellular network, and $456 for the satellite connectivity. So.
Per annum per device?
Yes, but then again, it depends as well what devices you've got, because, some of the add-ons, it's $52 a year for the add-ons, so $1 a week. So essentially, between $1 and $1.25 a tank to get that information, in terms of insurance, and about $1 a week for the information, say from a trough monitor, a flow meter, a pressure sensor, or a rain gauge. So,
Yep. Josh, do you want to just sort of say how much the system cost at Mount Ebor?
Yep. I've got my little notes here. So, it was $300 a camera, and then, $2,500 a site. So one of those sites might have a few cameras on it, but then it's $300 for each camera on top of that site. So that's with the Wi-Fi. Like each site has that Wi-Fi, which you can obviously use and call back and stuff.
Excellent. I've got a question down here, Michelle.
Seems I always have a question. This question is actually I'd like an expansion on the rain gauges. And other than telling you, do they measure the amount of rain that's in that gauge? Do they send it back? Then what do you do? Why?
Well, so the rain gauge is an add-on to the FarmBot water level monitor. So you'll often find them right next to the water level, the tank water level monitor on the tank, and it updates whenever the FarmBot monitor updates, but it gives you a daily graph, and then from that you're also able to get that graph and look at it in weekly, fortnightly, monthly, 6-month, yearly. So you're able to actually and export that data. And we also work with groups such as AgriWeb. We integrate with them, or Maya Grazing. So you're able to use that data if you're sort of doing, cell grazing, regeneration, monitoring, all that sort of stuff. So that data gives you, obviously a snapshot of what's happened in that paddock on that day. But you can look at the averages and the graphs weekly, monthly, fortnightly, etc. Yeah, so $229 for a rain gauge and $52 a year for the running cost of that rain gauge. So $1 a week for all that information, etc.
Shane?
I guess most of it's been covered, but for us it's $350 for a rain gauge. It doesn't change your subscription whether you got straight tank level or 5 flow meters on it. It's still that same $220 a year. But yeah, essentially the rain gauges are just a tipping bucket mechanism, and then every morning on your text message it tells you how much rainfall you've had, and then it's also presented on the website. There's a really cool feature in the app for looking at your historical rainfall data, and can be exported if you need it to be.
Is there any other weather applications other than rainfall you can add to it?
Like we do full weather stations. It's always a little bit tricky integrating other stuff in with tank level sensors in particular, because your wind speed sensor or your temp sensor are going to be up on top of a hill, on top of a tank, which is really not representative. So we can do it, but typically people don't do it, because if you're going to spend the amount of money that you need to on a quality weather station, you want to make sure it's in a spot that's right.
Yeah, we're doing some trials with weather stations, as well as soil and moisture probes. So we're not just stopping at what we've got. So there's always a suite of products that we're working on, because we know we kept getting asked the questions from you guys, and we want to keep supplying you with as many products that are going to help you guys out there on the paddock.
Yep, cheers. I think that's reinforces an important point about the interaction from you guys to the tech providers, whether it's a weather station or whether it's something else that you would like integrated onto your property. Any other questions from the floor?
On the money spent, how long is it going to take you in sheep production and wool production to get your money back?
But it also did give us more flexibility now that we have water in that northern part of the station. It actually helps us be able to decrease the grazing pressure. So while it's a return on investment, it's also given us greater flexibility to how we manage the property. So in times of, actually at all times, we can spread our grazing pressure so that in times of drought, we actually don't have anything that's overgrazed. Gives us more flexibility to moving stock around, makes us a lot more viable, and being able to hold our core breeding ewes when we do hit dry times. I think in that drought that we had 35 mils of rain for the whole year, and we didn't have to actually destock any of our core breeding ewes, so we were actually able to breed back up our numbers really quickly. So it's more about giving us flexible management options. So to actually do a straight calculation is possibly a little bit difficult, but it has certainly made a big difference to our property.
Yep. Scott, did you want to make any comment about return on investment for your property situation?
Not so much like return. I guess like your running costs are coming down. Like I said, you're not doing those. You know how much water's already in your tank, so you don't have to go to the tank. You don't have to check a level. You can go straight to a pump. You can start a pump. You know how much fuel you need to put in the pump. And like I said, then instead of saying, "Oh, you better go check those tanks the next morning," it's like you can send a couple of workers straight out and get onto other tasks for the full day, and you've got that reassurance that everything is on track till that scheduled water run, which might be in 2 or 3 days' time.
Great, thank you. And I'll start our final question for our panel. I'll ask is, what advice would you give producers looking to implement telemetry on their place? And I might just put this in context. When we had a tech expo here, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago, because the time flies, we asked the audience how many people had telemetry, and one person put up their hand. And today, I'm sure that would look quite different, and I won't ask you to do that. But for these guys in the audience looking to implement telemetry, what advice would you give them? We might start with Shane on the end.
One of the things which we pride ourselves on as a business is backup and support. You can have the best equipment in the world, but every now and then things go wrong. Might be nothing to do with you or the product, but stuff just doesn't go right. So making sure that there's someone at the other end of the phone to answer questions for you. Might not even be because of failure in product. It might be on how to interpret data. It's a really important aspect of it. But for us, we just think that there's an immense amount of value to be gained in flow data. Tank level by itself is great, but you've got to use a lot of interpretive skills at times to work out, is the tank level static because there's a beetle in the ball valve stopping the troughs from filling up, or is it because there's no flow in and no flow out? There's a few puddles up that end of the system, but when you've got flow into the tank, you can make a decision really quickly as to whether your pump's working or not. And if you've got flow coming out of the tank, you know whether you've either got a leak or there's no usage when there should be usage. And I don't think you can underestimate the value of flow data.
Yeah, well, I'll probably say it more of like I was saying with your EID and breeding plan. Just sit down and work out where you're going to get your best bang for buck and what's going to save you the most time. Just rather than go out all guns blazing, sit down and make a bit of a plan and work out what's going to suit you best, what's going to meet your requirements, and what's going to help you out the best way.
Cheers.
Like Shane said, backup and service is really important. Like one of my units failed last week, and I'm actually collecting it off Shane today. What's the point of spending a lot of money into cameras and then something fails, and then all of a sudden it's just like you might be a couple of months out before you get that camera fixed or get a technician to come up and see what the problem is. Like saying, look at the layout of your map, look at where you want your system to start. Like, I guess if you work on somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 per system, that'll give you an idea, an indication on how many units you want on over your property. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I think they spent about 50 grand on cameras on their property, but like I said, our property's so complex, it's just not viable for me to go down that path of putting tank cameras on every watering trough we've got.
Yeah, so just quickly to go back on the ROI question, on average, because we've done a lot of research into this, but our customers save around about, it's over $20,000 a year per customer, per FarmBot customer a year in terms of fuel, like reduction in fuel, labour time, checking all those minor things, and that's not including, like we all talk about a burst tank and what's that worth your the effects and dehydration on sheep of not having water, not having access to that for a long period of time, what that does to the quality of the wool, etc. So there's all those things to factor in. But starting off, we are really big on saying to our customers, like start small. You might have 70 tanks, you might have 100 tanks, you might have 140 troughs. Great, but let's start small. Let's get used. I want you to get used to the product, get used to the data. And then from there you can go, right, well, from what I can see, I know if I put it here, and here, it's going to help me the best. Like we don't want someone to come and go, right, I want to fill out the whole property, because we'd rather you get used to it, you get it, comfortable with it, and then you sort of, you go from there. And 70% of our business is actually our current customer base calling back and saying, right, now I'm ready, I want to, give me another X amount, or give me another flow meter, et cetera, and they're building that out. So that's really important. And also, there's a 60-day money-back guarantee, with our products. So we'd rather send them out to you, and if you don't like it, you just call us up, send it back, we give you the money back. Hasn't happened to me yet in 2 years, but, we want to give you that peace of mind, because, again, we don't want you to get burnt. And I know it's happened in the past with, the fly-by-nighters that you mentioned. We want to give you that reassurance.
Would you join me in thanking our panellists?